Okay, we're live.
Hello, this is Asians Not Brainwashed by Media. We are joined by one of our good friends, Al. He is quite knowledgeable about Asian American issues and Asian American activism. And yeah, why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Hey, Gary, it's good to chat with you and Paul today. Uh, I'm here on the West Coast, and glad we were able to find time to get together and chat about a number of fun media topics that are popping up. But I'm glad you guys are doing this. This is great, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. So we've had a lot of recent positive developments in the Asian American media space. You're pretty familiar with them. So why don't you tell us about a few of them and the biggest ones that have come to mind?
Yeah. It's been really um, an amazing last 12 months, but especially in 2019, with so many movies coming out. There's Always Be My Maybe with Randall Park and Ali Wong. Aziz Ansari just put out a new special on Netflix, which I found pretty entertaining. This news broke just this past week, but Simu Liu was just cast as Shang-Chi, the first Marvel Asian American superhero that we're going to see on screen. There are a number of topics that are pretty exciting. And just thinking back, Gary, we've known each other over a dozen years at this point, and it's really refreshing to see just how much movement has happened in the entertainment space, kicking off with Crazy Rich Asians last year, and then it seems like there's just a lot of momentum building since then. So it's really a good time for Asian youth to be consuming media and having positive images out there.
Yeah, I'm not quite familiar with the Shang-Chi story. I actually grew up with comics, but his story I think wasn't quite as popular. Do you know the background of that story?
So I think the history of this comic book is actually pretty racist, and I suspect they're going to do a major rewrite of the character. So Marvel used to have Fu Manchu, which is a pretty historical racist caricature of a lot of different stereotypes of Asian, evil Asian men, and Marvel lost the rights to Fu Manchu. So in which I guess is fortunate. They had to create a new character, the Mandarin, but then they shied away from that in the Iron Man series, and now they're going to bring it back. But I suspect they're going to do a major rewrite on the entire history of these characters. Shang-Chi is the son of whoever that this father character ends up being, and he's essentially kind of like a Bruce Lee like character. He's a martial arts expert, which I know is also a stereotype in and of itself. But he's really just highly skilled in everything he does, almost like an Asian Captain America. He doesn't have cosmic powers or anything. He's just like a superhuman person who just has a lot of great spirit, and I'm just curious to see where they take it. I'm assuming that they're not going to use a lot of the old comic book stories that really were problematic back in the day. So I see this as a fresh rewrite, and I'm excited for the cast too. So the director is a Hawaiian American, and it has pretty strong other Asian American leads. Aquafina was just cast as well in the film, so I'm pretty excited to see where they take this. It's really TBD. I hope they don't resort to easy caricatures of the older comic books.
Yeah, Shang-Chi, I think, is going to be battling against the Mandarin, who is played by Tony Leung from Infernal Affairs. It's like the main actor in that movie.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. What a coup to get Tony Leung. I mean, he's really one of the foremost talented and most acclaimed actors in Hong Kong. I mean, people may remember him as one of the police officers in Infernal Affairs. He was in a number of Wong Kar-wai films. He's won multiple awards in multiple European film festivals. It's really a tremendous uh, accomplishment to get him. I believe in the past he's actually turned down multiple Hollywood roles because he thought they were too stereotypical, or they asked him to just play very one dimensional characters. So the fact that they got him signals to me that it's going to be a three-dimensional character with a lot more interesting things going on than just a straight villain.
Yeah, have you seen Crazy Rich Asians?
I have.
Yeah, so you've seen the development. Again, we've been friends and we've been in this space for quite a while. So, what do you think of the recent developments, like from Crazy Rich Asians to Always Be My Maybe, and now this? Like, are you happy with it? Do you want us to improve even more? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's funny. I do go online and I like reading comments of what people think about these films. And my personal take, I'm really positive and pleased with where filmmaking and opportunities for Asian American artists is going overall. I know people nitpick at certain things, but when I kind of take a step back and think about just how influential and important those films are, overall, I see them as very positive. So, Crazy Rich Asians, just huge success. I think it was the most successful rom com of the past 10 years financially. And I also like that it made most of its money, pretty much all of its money, with US or Western country audiences. I think one thing that was frustrating, say 15 years ago, was the belief in Hollywood that you had to cast an Asian born actor from Asia for the box office draw. And so you would see, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but, growing up, we had, the Jackie Chan and Jet Li movies. But this was really one of the very few times where it showed that Asian American faces can really carry major box office dollars and not have to rely on East Asian markets to drive financial success. So I think that was a really, really important movie just for that. But it was also very well made. John Chu, the director, did a fantastic job. And it also provided just a lot of opportunities for those a lot of the actors that if you listen to their stories of their opportunities in other films, really allowed them to play roles that even recently they weren't really being offered. So I see that as really just a huge film that came out not even a year ago, last summer. And then moving on to other films, Always Be My Maybe, I think, the backstory of that one is, Ali Wong basically kind of in a throwaway line during an interview mentioned how she always wanted to make a rom-com and how her favorite movie was Harry Met Sally. And they were then approached to be able to make a movie. And her and Randall Park have known each other since they were both back in an Asian American theater group at UCLA, or at different time periods, but the same one that Randall Park founded. So I thought that was really cool that they were able to write a script together and build it with a lot of people that they've worked with in the past. The writer that they wrote the movie with is somebody that they've known for a while. The director is the director that they worked with on Fresh Off the Boat. It's a really well-made movie. It generated, millions and millions of views. And then Netflix is another platform, is just, again, changing the way people think about consuming media. And again, just another really important medium for people to consume content, where, again, 15 years ago, it was really just Hollywood, box office in movie theaters, where you really never, ever saw Asian Americans get to play the lead. So, no, it's been really just wonderful seeing the last 12 months. It's almost surreal in that I almost can't believe it when I think of even just 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that we have movies like this today. And it's not just that they're, with Asian American actors doing a fantastic job, but they're so relatable for all Americans. When you go online and read the comments, these stories are universal and they resonate with audiences of all backgrounds. So, and that's another thing that I love about these pieces that are coming out. They're just really great works of content that appeal beyond just Asian American moviegoers.
Right. That's what I noticed too. When I watched Crazy Rich Asians in theaters, I saw people of all different races, ages, and such. And I think that was great. Speaking, and then going back to Shang-Chi, Simu Liu, I'm not really quite familiar with him. Are you familiar with him at all?
Yeah, so I enjoy binging on all the streaming services. So Netflix and Amazon Prime, there's a lot of great Asian American and Asian content on there now. Simu is on a show called Kim's Convenience. It's a really well-made comedy show, I would call it, out of Canada, and it's on Canadian TV. And then over the last year, Netflix bought the first 2 to 3 seasons of the show. So I've been following him for, I'd say, a little over a year. Once he's, these programs started showing up on the streaming services, and it's surreal seeing that on the TV screen at home. He plays, the son of convenience store owners, and he just plays a regular, Asian Canadian guy, working. He's really funny. He's athletic. He's charismatic. He has love interests in the show. Again, just everything he does in the show is really advancing, a lot of the things that ANBM is about. And Simu, outside of the show, is somebody, if you just listen to his interviews and the way that he speaks out about things, he's, a very confident person. He believes in, these identity issues. He believes in speaking out. And so it was almost a slam dunk choice when I heard that he was cast for Shang-Chi, just to elevate him in that prominent of a role in a Marvel superhero movie. I just thought was just so great for him. But I would recommend anybody who hasn't seen the show Kim's Convenience to check it out. It's really a well written, well made show that's currently on Netflix, and I think they're filming additional episodes. And they're being broadcast on Canadian TV right now.
Yeah, hopefully he won't be upset if he goes back on the show. I think Constance was kind of upset on Twitter that she was put on Fresh Off the Boat. Is that right? I'm not sure if you heard about that.
I definitely saw that. I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, I think, sometimes people wish maybe they didn't tweet something. I forget the timestamp of when she put that out, but it's probably something I'm sure she regrets saying. I think she since then retracted and said that she really appreciates being on the show and all the opportunities that it created for her. But that wasn't a good look for her to put something like that out there and potentially seem ungrateful for the opportunities that she's had. But on the other hand, Fresh Off the Boat really has been a great platform for people. I mean, Randall Park's career has really taken off. Constance being in Crazy Rich Asians, Hudson Yang, who plays the son on the show, is getting other opportunities. So I mean that's a really important show, and that it just crossed 100 episodes, which I guess it means less nowadays, but back in the day, in the 90s, when you had Seinfeld and Friends and those kind of iconic sitcoms, crossing the 100 episode threshold used to be kind of like that was the number that basically got you into permanent syndication on TV. So when you see all those reruns of Friends over and over, or whatever it is, you probably notice actually on the airplanes now. I've noticed just on various airplanes that I've been on the last year. Fresh Off the Boat is usually one of the 10 options when you go to the TV show section, which is again pretty incredible. That out of all the TV programming, that is one of the things that you can watch now on any major U.S. airline.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Actually, Paul and I talked a bit about this, but we kind of need a pipeline, right? And I think Crazy Rich Asians and Fresh Off the Boat provides us that. Have you seen The Wire at all? It's like an old HBO TV show.
Yeah, I remember watching the Wire.
Yeah,
Man, it must be 10 years ago at this point, but yeah, I mean,
that TV show was like one of the first to feature a ton of black actors. And I didn't realize this, but Michael B. Jordan, who plays Creed in the new Rocky movies, he's from that show.
There's so many. Yeah, Mahershala Ali, the Oscar winner, was on the show as well. I mean, it was almost like an all-star cast of people that just went on to so many movies after that.
Exactly. So I think we're kind of hopefully seeing that in these new TV shows and films.
I hope so. Yeah, that's a good analogy.
I mean, like, it's launching like people's careers, like a bunch of like Asian actors' careers. Like, I guess like Simu Liu is that's kind of happening with Simu Liu, right? Is that like he kind of started off in Kim's Convenience, and
right?
Then now he's in a Marvel, in the Marvel movie.
Yeah, and I think that really speaks to. I mean, this sounds obvious, but just the importance of Asian Americans or Asian North Americans being able to write their own content and act in it. Even if you don't think it has a wide following, casting directors and people do eventually come across those, and then people that are putting out good content do get discovered. This is like a really random tidbit, but I remember before Randall Park made it big, he was posting these I found really hilarious, funny videos on YouTube. This is probably 10 years ago. He was making little sketches in IKEA stores.
IKEA Heights.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember this. No, but it's stuff like that where it's. I wouldn't be surprised if people just picked up on it and then opened a couple doors for him, and then it just kept snowballing from there. So, I think it just speaks to, again, you talk about like these certain shows or movies where the cast ends up going on to bigger and better things. I think that when you look at the commonality, it's like these were things that Asian Americans wrote and made for themselves. It wasn't like somebody became big by playing some bit part in some other movie. So again, it's just, hopefully it builds this momentum and this snowballing effect where just more content gets greenlit and funded, and then you have more talent going into it, and then it just keeps on going in a virtuous cycle.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems we had with Bruce Lee. I mean, from the 70s until recently, he was the only like big Asian American star, and he wanted to star in the TV show Kung Fu, but he was shot down. It was starred by a white guy, David Carradine. And hopefully now we're seeing more of that. Have you seen the TV show Warrior?
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to watch The Warrior. I don't have Showtime, so I haven't seen it yet. But the moment that's out, yeah.
Yeah, Paul's seen that, I think. Why don't you tell us a bit about what it's about and what you think of the show so far?
I think it's like the best Asian American show, like, by far. If I had to rank them, I think Kim's Convenience is better than Fresh Off the Boat, like the show. Okay, but I think Warrior is like better than Kim's Convenience. If that makes sense.
I mean, from what I've heard, it's like a very woke main character that doesn't back down, right? And they show this character and other Asian people experiencing prejudice and racism, but you have these strong characters that are proud and confident, and I mean, it really sounds like a game changer just to even see that on screen, of people not backing down or standing up for themselves. I can't wait to watch it. I just haven't had a chance to see it yet.
I'm only halfway through. I haven't seen like the whole thing yet, so I can't really say like But from what I've seen so far, like from the few episodes I've seen so far, I'm really impressed, and I always recommend it like to people, and then whenever it comes up in conversation, or if ever if I'm in one of these groups and somebody talks about Warrior, or if someone's like, "Oh, hey, can you guys recommend like an Asian show like on TV or something?" It's like it's always the first thing I I propose or I recommend is yeah, you guys got to go see Warrior because it's a
No,
really
no,
good show.
no doubt. I mean, I mean, I've read a lot of articles and I've heard interviews about it, and it was created by Justin Lin. Justin Lin basically reached out to the
Oh,
daughter of Bruce Lee and
right.
asked to go through Bruce Lee's old scripts and things that never got made. And so this was one of those shows where it was this treatment actually came from Bruce Lee. It was just sitting in some box in his daughter's home, and his daughter's also one of the producers of the show. So I mean, just hearing of the people behind the film, it comes from that the right place and authentic place, and again, kudos to Justin Lin for doing that. It seems like he's done a nice job balancing making billion-dollar hits with then going back and finding really authentic content, and then making sure that that's amplified to the world. So that's, and Justin Lin's been doing it now for 20 years, going back to Better Luck Tomorrow. So I'm not surprised that Warrior is an amazing show.
The one gripe that I've heard about it, like, and this mostly comes from like Kanto speakers, is that a lot of the characters, like their Cantonese, is like not really like that good. So if you're really picky or nitpicky about like Kanto, or if you're like a fluent like native speaker of Cantonese, like that might be like one thing. That's the one like gripe that I've heard like commonly said. Um, so hold on. So in Warrior, the two characters, I think the two main characters are like they're both halfies. They're both Happas. I remember on Crazy Rich Asians, this was like a bit, it was a bit controversial, the casting, but in for Warrior, it hasn't seemed like like it's been like a big issue or it's been a big deal. Can you guys like comment on that a little bit, or like what do you guys think of that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and Gary, I know we've talked about this in other conversations. I'm neutral on stuff like that. I think I think if some, first of all, outside of the character, if an actor is of mixed background and they identify as Asian, I consider them Asian American or Asian, like what it's, so I tend to personally have less of an issue of that. And that's kind of one of the things I was alluding to for Crazy Rich Asians, when I said people were nitpicking it, that I just think Henry Goling, grew up in Southeast Asia. If you look at his background, he's, pretty, proud, Asian person with a good sense of identity. And, he also, for me, he looks Asian. It wasn't like, I don't think he's like, like a Hapa that basically looks like a white person. So I don't know. I think there are people in Southeast Asia that do look like him. And I don't know, for your question about Warrior, I haven't seen it yet. I would suspect that I don't know that it's gotten a lot of eyeballs yet. I wouldn't be surprised if, once Showtime repackages it and it lands on some streaming service, that people maybe question that as well. But I don't know. I'm probably not the right, like, I generally am neutral on those things. I don't let things like that be the reason why I can't appreciate or watch a film. So I guess I can give you a better take once I've seen Warrior, but this is the first time that I've heard of that even being an issue of the actor in Warrior. I basically assumed he probably looks like just an Asian American actor. But I'm curious if Gary, if you have a take on it.
Yeah, so for me, I think what's important, well, it's not extremely important, but what determines whether or not, whether or not I think he should, like someone who's mixed should play an Asian character is kind of based on the way they look. Because I think how a person gets treated throughout their lives kind of it depends a lot on how they look. Like if the half Asian person looks completely white, they don't even have to acknowledge their Asian side, and
Right.
they can get through life looking white, and it's fine. And it's opposite. If the half white kid looks Asian completely, then they're going to be treated as Asian, and they're going to behave differently. Also, whether they look Asian or not, it represents Asian. So if the person looks Asian, then they represent me, you, etc. So I think that matters. And from what I've seen in Warrior, the main character is half Japanese, but he looks basically completely Asian. And Jason Tobin was actually from Better Luck Tomorrow, and he looks full Asian as well.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas I think in Crazy Rich Asians, Henry Golding, he is half Southeast Asian. So I think people are just not familiar with that. And so I'm not sure, but I think he looks Southeast Asian, but a lot of people don't think he looks Asian because he's not East Asian looking. So that's the difference, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good take, and I think that's fair. And I think you hit on something that's really key, about the way they identify themselves and the way that they have experienced life, right? So yeah, Jason Tobin looks like an Asian actor, and I'm sure and his representation on screen, when people see him act, they see him, that way. And like one thing I think of just in terms of, like historical people, like a lot of people are, really, really big fans, rightfully so, of Bruce Lee, but Bruce Lee himself was mixed. And, but he was a really proud Asian person because he personally experienced, prejudice and racism as an Asian person. And he really strongly identified as an Asian person and, built the things and made movies to help to, in his own way, change the way people thought about Asian people. And, even going beyond Asian people, I mean, Malcolm X, actually, I don't even know if people know this. Malcolm X is actually like mixed white as well, but he was just so militant, black movement, that because he grew up and personally experienced that stuff. And so, I don't know. I don't generally have an issue. Like if you just have really strong advocates who are Asian American, but happen to be of other backgrounds as well, like I think the net is still very positive, depending on their actions and how they see themselves.
I didn't even know Jason. I didn't even know Jason Tobin was from Better Luck Tomorrow. I didn't even recognize him. I always thought he was just an Asian guy.
Yeah, he plays Virgil. He was the guy that it's kind of like the wild guy that was making bad decisions in the movie.
Yeah, I remember him now. Now that since like Gary mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, it's from
right.
Yeah, and that goes back to like the pipeline, right? So if you weren't in Better Luck Tomorrow and he didn't know Justin Lin, he probably wouldn't be on the show as well.
Oh, that's true.
And then we actually have had half Asian actors in the past. Dean Cain, he's actually half Japanese, but he looks white, so people don't associate him with Asian. I don't think he talks about being Asian at all.
We only recently, I think, did he bring that up? But I feel like before in the past, when during his heyday or when Superman was popular, I don't think it was brought up much, or people didn't really talk about it like as much. Like it wasn't like a thing back then.
I see Dean Cain. That's a really interesting example. For some reason I kind of always knew that growing up, and I loved watching the Superman TV show with Terry Hatcher. Because he was playing Superman, and he's this Asian guy on TV, or he just he looks or Hop or whatever. But I wonder if his career arc might be similar to someone like Keanu Reeves, where for like 30 years I don't think people ever really thought of him as Asian. But now it's like he was in Always Be My Maybe, and I mean he is mixed Chinese Hawaiian, and I wonder if it's going to be like that, where you have actors that start coming back to it or become known for it, because I guess it's becoming cooler nowadays to be Asian, and so you might see more actors like that maybe for a while never acknowledged it or basically acted as if they were white because they could, but then over time you just see more people like that. Like Kristen Crook, for example, that's one that I would think of. Like, she was in Smallville. She's never from what I can tell, acknowledged, her
Never
Asian
vocal.
identity. But I wonder if people like that, just over time, you just as it becomes cooler to be Asian, have people more willing to embrace that side of themselves.
Yeah. An interesting thing happened because I don't know if you guys are familiar with the group Subtle Happy Traits, but he's basically like their idol, like their god, Keanu Reeves. And after that, like ever since like they love hyping him up. He's like their I don't know. He kind of has a cult following. You know what I mean? Kind of like Nick Cage kind of has like that. But I don't think it's like ironic though. I think it's like this unironic like cult following for Keanu Reeves. But I don't know. I feel like ever since that, yeah. And it's kind of a little weird. So it kind of borders on the weird sometimes. But
yeah, I mean, Keanu's a special character, though. I mean, I'd say even beyond. You said, I think, subtle Asian traits. That the group you said.
Happy.
I mean, because the things that I read. I mean, I think it spans even just Asian people. I mean, just a lot of people love the guy. He's from all accounts, just a really humble, genuine person. He's very generous. There's all these stories of him donating to children's hospitals and buying the entire film crew like really expensive gifts or giving away all his earnings from movies for certain things. So. I don't even know if it's like an Asian thing. He just seems like to be like one of those really rare, special people.
He's just a really nice guy. Like even if yeah, that's true. Like even like despite like just the race thing or whatever, like he's just like just as an individual, just as a person, like he's a very like good, like nice guy, like you said.
I think that the difference, though, yeah, he's freaking awesome. I agree. The difference, though, is that when people talk about him, sometimes I mention, oh, he's actually, quarter Chinese and quarter Hawaiian. And like, really? Whereas for full Asian actors, you won't have to say that. And for half Asians who look Asian, you don't have to say that either. So I think that's a difference. Like Dean Cain's dad is actually Japanese, so he was born with a Japanese last name.
Yeah, his last name is Tanaka, right?
Right, and same with Chloe Bennett. Her last name is actually Wang. So, they're able to do that because they look white, compared to like Jason Tobin, who even though his last name is a white last name, he looks Asian. So you can't disguise that.
Well, that's the thing, right? There's like the balance of that, right? And maybe I'm a little more forgiving than most about that. I think that if people, have a healthy sense of identity there, I'm more willing to welcome them. I think Chloe Bennett, though, that's kind of a line for me. If somebody's basically whitewashed their own last name, and then I think she was dating like this white supremacist YouTube guy, or I forget that guy did something in Japan. Yeah, so that's the line for me. It's like, okay, at that point, it's like rejecting, who their Asian side, being ashamed of it, and then basically actively supporting white supremacism and anti-Asian racism. At that point, it's like, okay, like then that's not cool.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see less of that over time. Like you said, with these new shows and Asians being in or whatnot.
Right.
Do you guys think? I know this is kind of a bit of a stretch, but did you know Kate Beckinsale was like an eighth Burmese?
Yeah, no, I actually did.
It's a bit of a stretch, I don't like just like claiming her like that. But
she said when she was a child, she looks like she described herself as like Oriental or something.
Yeah, it's like super obvious. Like she has like pictures of herself, like I think on Instagram, she shared it where she says, like pics of herself like when she was a kid, and she's saying how she was like North Burmese and like in deep Chiswick cover or something like that. So it was kind of funny, but she is aware. She is very aware of her Burmese side.
Yeah, and like Zach from Saved by the Bell is quarter.
Oh yeah.
Right, Zach
Morris.
Right, but he's like a blonde kid on the show, and almost no one knows that he's.
I could kind of see it though. I actually do. I could kind of see like the some of his like Southeast Asian features, because he basically, if you look at his facial features, I know like um it you can kind of see a little bit of it because he basically just bleaches his hair blonde, right? So people just think he's a blonde guy. But
Yeah, I mean, I think so. This chat about people that are partial. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I tend to not think of them as like a fraction of whatever. Like, it's almost like I'm turning the one drop thought, flipping it from when white supremacists use it and then back to. I just feel like if somebody feels like they're Asian, they're Asian, and like it's just when you look at it's different. Hopefully for little kids growing up now, but I know when I was growing up, it was like not cool to be Asian. People would be ashamed of bringing like Asian lunches to school or just feeling different. And so whether it's the topic of Hapas or even just like, non-mixed Asian kids growing up, like hopefully just all these movies and just the whole shift of society towards this will hopefully make them feel like it's okay to just be who they are and, just accept that as opposed to, running away from things. And one of the things I'm really interested to see, it's kind of an East Asian phenomenon. You basically every other immigrant group has never done this except for East Asians. But I'm curious if at some point you're going to start seeing more Asian Americans with like native ethnic East Asian names, and they're American people that grew up in the States, and they're like proud of that and not just adopting Anglo names just because they think it's easier to pronounce or whatever reason. Like I wonder if that'll end up being a symptom. So, it's something interesting to watch over the next 10 years if that starts to increase or not.
Are you talking about like just surnames or like first names or just like in general?
Yeah, first names. I mean, it's like all the South Asian immigrants or immigrants from Europe or South America or like really, it's just East Asian immigrant families that are changing their names to English names, and I wonder if our generation or the generation after us feels more comfortable adopting more names from their respective cultures. I personally do see it a little bit more among my cohort of my generation, and I'm curious if that is also a symptom of kind of everything we're talking about, that it's okay to be Asian, whereas before it was like just assimilate and whitewash everything away.
I feel like it depends like on the name, because like obviously like some Asian names are much easier to westernize or romanize than others. You know what I mean? Like I feel like Korean names are fairly easy to do. Like it's just Park, Lee. You know what I mean? And those are pretty like straightforward, like to say like for Westerners. But say for example like Vietnamese names with the tonal changes and things like that, like it's a lot more difficult like for Westerners to pronounce. So I feel like it kind of depends.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, it's going to be relative, right? So
Right.
maybe like in the history of other immigrants, true. They may have slightly changed the spelling of names, but that's what I mean though, is like some sort of maybe middle ground as opposed to just opening up the English dictionary and just picking a name, like trying to adapt the name from your culture. And I hear you about maybe making modifications. That certainly does happen, but I just wonder if we'll see more of those with modifications as opposed to just a lot of Jennifers and whatever.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, Al, I actually talked to you about this in the past, but I think a lot of it goes back to value and kind of how how high on the social status ladder that certain ethnic group or racial group is. So unlike in the West, in South America, like people who are half or mixed Asian are super proud of being Asian, and they talk about it. They're not afraid of having their Asian last name. They they identify with the food and all that stuff too. And I think that's also just because Asians in South America are seen as like kind of on this higher social ladder. So social status compared to the West, where we're kind of below whites, right? So I think once you see that change, we're going to see more Asians or mixed Asians even with Asian first names, you know?
Yeah. Like they're more proud.
I hear you. That's a great point. Yeah, and I think it's happening. I think it's happening now. I mean, just with I think it's parallel things with the growing affluence of Asian Americans in the U.S., but then also I think the increasing affluence of just countries in Asia as well is also changing people's beliefs. So yeah, I mean, it should be interesting. I mean, it's all happening now. It should be something that we should be able to observe in our lifetimes.
Yeah, so it's like I guess Asians will just be like they'll be less ashamed, right? Is what you're saying? Like they'll be more proud of their Asian heritage, their Asian side, and feel less shame for.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a great time if you're like a 12-year-old Asian kid nowadays, on Netflix or Amazon, going to the movies. I think it's just a very different experience than the 80s or 70s. I mean, this is I think it's fantastic. Like I think the best thing is that maybe Asian kids don't even realize that they're like the other anymore. They may just feel just more American, which is great. Just showing that a lot of these movies and things that we just talked about, these are all, American films or North American movies. And so that, they feel included and they don't feel like they're this kind of outsider minority group.
Perpetual foreigner.
Right.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. Are there any other TV shows or movies that you've seen that you wanted to talk about?
We covered quite a bit. I mean, I think there's other things that I haven't dug too deep into them. They're just intriguing to me. I saw that they're remaking Mulan into a live action movie, and some people are really happy. Some people are upset that that's being remade, but I'm really interested to see how that shakes out. I think that Disney movies in particular can be very powerful influencers on youth, and so I'm really paying attention to what happens with that one. I think I just saw the other day. We were just talking about Justin Lin. I think he signed on to direct Fast and Furious 9. So he's already made a gazillion dollars off this franchise, and but I like that he's kind of doing this balance between these passion projects and then going back and making boatloads of money. So I'm excited to see that just for pure entertainment value. And I haven't seen it yet. I plan to later this weekend. It just wasn't available in where I'm at in theaters until this weekend. But I've been hearing really good things about that movie, The Farewell. It's a movie about based on the real life story of the director, Lulu Wang, and it's about an Asian American who goes back to Asia, where their grandparent is dying of cancer, but the family doesn't want to tell the grandmother. So that one's interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing that. It seems like it's getting rave reviews. It sounds like it was the kind of the hit of the Sundance Festival. And off some early interviews I've heard from the director, she seems like somebody who's very thoughtful and aware and intelligent, and she kind of stuck to her guns as well. There was a piece where she was talking about how, again, Hollywood in traditional fashion wanted to rewrite the thing and have the female character have a white boyfriend, really for no reason, just to do that. And she kind of stuck to her guns, and it's basically an all Asian cast in the way that she experienced it. And so I thought that was pretty cool that just the way it was made and how authentic it is. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. I haven't seen it yet.
I heard about that. They wanted to shoehorn a white guy into this movie.
Wait, who actually? So who actually pushed back on that?
The director did. The director, I mean, it's pretty impressive. I mean, she basically was like, no, I want to make the movie this way. And and so pushed back on that. But that's refreshing, because I feel like, how many times did we see that even 10 years ago, where it was like what was that random what was that Jackie Chan Jet Li movie, where they had that random white guy actor doing the Karate Kid thing, the Forbidden Kingdom, or
Oh,
I mean, we've seen that so many times. Tom Cruise in Last Samurai, or even Matt Damon in The Great Wall. It's like,
Gotta have a white guy.
so,
Gotta have a white guy.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm hoping that we're like starting to get past that, and it's that. Unfortunately, it's not even in like a long time ago. It's still in kind of like the recent past, but it's kind of encouraging hearing stories like that, where creators are able to push back and ultimately win and still make great films.
Yeah, I'm actually on the Farewell Wikipedia page, and it seems like all the actors are Asian, but the producers, I think more than half of them are white, and you have like four guys who are white guys, like three Asian female producers and one white female. So like half of them are white guys. So that's probably why they're pushing for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if, like, just the way these meetings happen, or they're always like, oh yeah, just have, throw in like the white guy, and then he's gonna, have him date the main character or whatever. I'm sure that's like proposed constantly.
Yeah, some of those are just ridiculous. Actually, our last podcast, we talked a bit about that, about like having white people star in like Asian films, and just doesn't make sense to me, honestly.
Like shoehorning.
I just think it's going to be, I mean, it already is ridiculous, but I hope and wonder if 10 years from now, when we look back, it just seems like completely insane that was even happening. I mean, it is really ridiculous. Like, I can't believe the Great Wall was made that way. And one thing that actually concerns me is, because there is quite a bit of financing and money coming out of East Asia for movies. Alibaba and those guys, like, they have a studio, and they're putting a lot of money into movies. But I do have a concern that unless somebody is kind of aware, or cognizant of some of these things that we've talked about, that somebody who's kind of ignorant might just revert to these tired old ways of making films, where it's like, it's not like even the white person doing it. It's like that Asian person with boatloads of money, but they're just not aware, and they're almost like just acting in a way because they've internalized certain things and they never really thought about it. So I do have that concern, where I wouldn't be surprised if we still see movies like that, but it might even be coming from movies and money that were financed actually by Asian people.
So, like, there's something I heard about the Great Wall. So you guys know the director, right? It's like Zhang Yimou. So I don't know if it's something I heard, like, it's just, I don't know how criticism or how accurate this is, but like, basically, some of the producers or some of the guys from like, I think it was Legendary or something, like, they wanted to have a sex scene between Mark Wahlberg and
Matt Damon.
Yeah, Matt Damon. Yeah, guy. Yeah, between Matt Damon and the female lead, right, or something like that. Like, they wanted to have like a sex scene between them. And what I heard though is that, like, as much flack as he gets, like Zhang Yimou, right, for the casting, like, he actually was adamant that it was so completely against it and prevented like something like that from happening, like, from the movie. Like, I guess I don't know, for whatever reason, like, it is, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how much of an influence this like played in the movie, but I also heard like his daughter is with a white guy, so like maybe that's kind of like partially why it happened. But I'm not really sure. I don't know. That's something I heard.
Interesting.
And another thing I heard too is that a lot of these, like, I don't know, like, a lot of these guys, or what was it? Somebody was saying like, a lot of these elites, like these Chinese elites, like, movie industry and stuff like that, they usually go to like California, right? to learn like all about like film and things like that, and so they learn a lot of the values they learn is that those progressive like liberal progressive like values in California, right? Like how that it's always like white guy with Asian girl is progressive, is I don't know, I guess futuristic or whatever, or is like
Love is love.
yeah, exactly, and this is where they internalize a lot of those values. They go to like UCLA or LA or something like that, and I don't know, like what do you guys think of that, or like
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little different than 20 years ago. I mean, 20 years ago, I remember just distinctly thinking even on TV, TV shows that considered themselves quote unquote diverse, it was usually like one black guy and then one Asian girl. Like that was like every TV show in the 90s that had any diversity was that. There were no Asian males, and then over time
Karate Kid?
you had
The
yeah, I
Karate
mean
Kid
it was so, and then and then the only other representation really was maybe like newscasters, Asian female newscasters that were married to white males in the media. So I mean, yeah, I feel like it's slightly better now in that I think it's like a little bit more balanced. But I hear you. I mean, that's yeah, like it's funny that whenever I see commercials or TV shows that try to be diverse, it's usually still that like black guy, Asian female, token character on the side, next to a bunch of white actors. I think it's changing slowly, but I do still see it like that.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about Asia. Like we talk about white privilege a lot, but Paul and I talked about this in the past, but we actually see that way more in Asia. Like being a white guy in Asia, you can pretty much get any girl you want, regardless if you're rich, poor, whatever status you have. And the commercials and the ads and billboards in Asia, it's like saturated with white models as well.
Well, yes. I mean, I haven't looked at those in a while, but I'm curious. Like, I have a question for you about that. Then, when you say models, then I'm assuming you mean like they'll put like white male models, probably less white female models, or both.
Actually, I think it's both. I think when I go to malls in China, like a lot of the billboards are like just either white guys or white women, and it's not representative of like the percentage of them in China because they're like 0.0001%, but there's a ton of them just like as ads, like advertising clothes and stuff like that.
It's signal status.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So that's something that it's on a macro level, not specific to any country, but that is something I worry about. It's more that sometimes we've talked about this before about just colonized thinking and white beauty standards. And unfortunately, yeah, I remember that growing up when I would go visit Asia or see relatives that whether it be Japan or other East Asian countries, if you pick up a fashion magazine, they're usually glorifying a Caucasian face, or back to the thing we talked about with Hapas, trying to suggest subliminally to Native Asian people that these people with more Caucasian features are more attractive. So I mean, I'm very against that, and I think it's very damaging for people to do that. So that's disappointing to hear the way you're describing it, that it sounds like it's happening in China so much. But then on the other hand, it unfortunately sounds similar then to what's happened in so many other countries where you just have this basically, indoctrination of white beauty standards and white privilege on the native population. It's not good for self-esteem or, sense of how they see themselves.
Yeah, I think throughout the world, Africa, China, Japan, Middle East, whatever, I think whites are seen as quote unquote the most attractive. And so I've heard this in Singapore where like the average Singaporean makes more money than the average American, but the average white American guy can go there and still get any girl he wants, regardless of how rich he is, just because he's white, right?
AMDK.
What is that?
It's like If you just Google it real quick, AMDK. AMDK.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I mean, I think that on some level can be offensive, right? If basically you observe that just because somebody is Caucasian, they get like extra bonus points or whatever, and they're seen on a different level than just other Asian people. That's really disappointing and really offensive to anybody that has a high level of self-respect as an Asian person. So that's too bad. I mean, it's a huge problem. I don't. That's one of the things too that I think about sometimes, which is we talk about things happening in Asian America, but the kind of the source sometimes just comes actually from Asia, where that's how people there are indoctrinated or grow up, and then even when they immigrate here, or if they have kids, and then those kids are second generation, those kids kind of internalize those same beliefs. So I wonder, if there are ways to, combat this white privilege or white beauty standards and, increase awareness and education in Asia. Because I feel like I don't know that they even think about this stuff or are aware of how damaging those things can be in their fashion magazines.
Yeah, I think China's kind of trying to do that by making their media more insular. I think Hollywood's just really powerful. So they're able to broadcast their beauty standards throughout the world. I mean, before the West was in contact with Asia, I think, Asians at that time thought white features were not attractive.
Right.
Over time, after being colonized and the wars and such, that changed dramatically.
And not to generalize here, but I mean, I think the affluence of Western countries probably changed the mindset where Asians maybe changed their beliefs of what they thought were attractive. As like I know when we were growing up, Asian countries were generally poor, with the exception of maybe Japan. So I mean that also really messes with people's minds too when they think that there's some sort of like economic hierarchy, which again I think is like changing very quickly, year by year right now. But I do suspect that played a huge role in it too, where you talk about how their beliefs 150 years ago towards Caucasian features is very different from now. And I wonder if we look back 30 years from now, if there's an association with, again, Asian countries increasing in wealth and kind of the decline of some Western countries, whether that also has a relationship with how we see white beauty standards too.
I don't think so. Because I feel like even Japan. I feel like even in like the rich Asian countries like Singapore, Japan, or whatever, like it's pretty much like on the same level as like the poor Asian countries like Thailand and Philippines. Like I don't think like money or wealth has a correlation, or has a big influence like on that on the white worshipping.
Well, I hear you. I hear what you mean, Paul, in current state, right? So basically in current state, let's say, or let's not even say current state, it's even easier to say like, say 10 years ago, right? If basically the only rich country was probably Japan, you had other fast growing, fast developing countries, but if you were an affluent Japanese person, but you thought basically the way the world worked was you had like 50 rich white countries, and then you were in the only wealthy Asian country, I could see that doing a number on somebody's mindset. So, yeah, I totally see in current state, Japan, Singapore, things like that. I just mean, I'm fast forwarding, say, 20 years now in the future, where let's say like the top 5 economies are Asian countries. It may just change the way people think about things, as opposed to right now, where it's like you could be in an affluent city, state, or country, but you're still seen as kind of like the minority when it comes to global power or wealth.
Maybe it's kind of like there's like Chinese that are like really like super rich, but then like people will still associate them with like the peasants from the countryside and stuff, or like those unruly tourists. If that makes any sense, right?
Yeah, but hopefully,
Huh?
Hopefully by then. I mean, I think a lot of
Like
reason.
hungers?
Yeah. Like I
Yeah.
think a lot of reason why is because I'm not sure if this is true, but my theory is that Chinese culture has not caught up with the wealth they have. Like, there's a lot of wealthy Chinese now, but like they're still stuck in like the 1970s kind of cultural revolution mindset, so they haven't had time to adjust. I don't think in 25 years we're going to see tourists from China being the same. Like, I have family there, and they're actually very polite, and they're not like that at all. And I think the media has a big role to play as well, because you see you see people from other third world countries like in India, Africa, they're just as impolite and rude, but the media doesn't shine a spotlight on them because they're not Chinese, right? They're not Asian.
Well, I mean, that's the thing too, and we've talked about this a bunch, just in our personal chats. I mean, I think there's like this really anti-Chinese thing going on in Western media, which, not to be like a China defender here, but it's just because it still affects all of us when you see all these like crazy news articles or like this almost like deliberate constant stream of news about how China's like cheating or stealing or doing something, unscrupulous. And it's just like that affects how people see Asian people and Asian American people. So it's like frustrating. And I mean, it's really been dialed up the last couple of years, especially under Trump, just really trying to, almost treat China as like a Cold War adversary.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I mean, like, they took down. We thought TPP was bad under Obama, right? I don't know if you guys remember that the Trans-Pacific Partnership was designed to, Chinese containment, something like that. But so Trump dismantled that, or he did something else with TPP or took that down. But I don't know. I guess like what replaced it is worse, or I'm not really sure how it compares.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
really.
I mean, I think it's I mean, that I think he basically undid a half dozen things that the prior administration did. So that was one of them. That's the transatlantic trans-Asian trade deal,
Yeah.
right, to basically contain China. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think I know a couple people, our parents' age who like voted Trump. And that's probably more common is like the older immigrant, baby boomer generation of Asian American parents tends to be a little more conservative, and I wonder how many of them regret that vote. Like, because I mean, Trump has been doing so many things to bash China, like way more than I saw before, and it does worry me. Like I get paranoid sometimes, just that the internment camps or other I mean, you see it too with migrants nowadays. Like, I feel like Asians are so vulnerable. Like, we're like only 1 or 2 degrees away from this stuff potentially directly affecting us. So I don't know. Some of the stuff that's happened now is like a little terrifying. Just the level of xenophobia that seems to be spouted and then accepted. It kind of it does trouble me. Just how much of it seems to be happening these days.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about this on the next podcast. It's a very complex issue, but yeah.
Yeah, I think my the only other thing, Gary, that I would put out there, something that's just drawing a lot of my interest back to media, but slightly related to politics.
Sure.
No, very very related to politics is that candidate Andrew Yang, and not to get into any of his politics, but just him as a figure and an icon on TV, and just coming off as a very funny, charismatic, confident, very very good speaker, very eloquent person, is like, again, something that I think is surreal. Like, me even just watching TV, seeing debates where there's actually like an Asian American guy running for president, and he's on the same stage next to the big contenders is like very surreal for me. Something that I didn't even realize how weird it was going to be for me seeing that until it actually happened, where it was like, oh my gosh, that's pretty cool. So anyways, irrespective of his, what people think about his policies or whatever, I just think it's really, really, really great that somebody like him, who's so charismatic, is running for president and getting a lot of media attention currently.
I gotta agree with you on that. I think the optics from Andrew Yang is really good for now. But I figured out if he rises too high, or if he gets like, you know what I mean, like if he once the competition like really starts to heat up and he's still in there and like the mudslinging starts happening, it may be bad. I feel like the opposition is gonna gonna ramp up and I feel like it may backfire, on us, on Asians. Just my theory. I don't know, but for now it's okay. Like I see some negative comments here and there, like on websites and stuff, like whatever. That's not really a big deal. But like once like politics starts to get like dirty, and once like the the politicians really start to dig into each other, then like I feel like maybe like this might start causing like some racial like backlash. But for now it's good though. For now it's definitely like good. Like Andrew.
Yeah, it's like it's impressive. I mean, I'll see stuff on Twitter or Instagram, and he's like packing these public speeches and rallies, and then you look at the demographics of his supporters. Again, it's mostly, from what I can tell, not Asian people. It's like people of all backgrounds. Again, that again, pretty neat that he seems to be resonating with a bunch of people, and he seems to have a really passionate following. Again, spanning a lot of backgrounds beyond just Asian Americans. So it's pretty cool. It's yeah, but I hear you. I think as he stays in the race, and we'll see how long he lasts. But yeah, it seems it's pretty neat. Something totally unexpected. I didn't even know he existed last year, and now he's like all over the place.
Do you know what position he's in? Like, you think he's like in 4th or 5th or 8th?
I think he's like in 6th place, which is pretty good. I mean, he's ahead of a bunch of senators and governors.
Wow.
So yeah, that's impressive, and he's it's like grassroots. Most people just don't even know him. So it's pretty impressive for what he's done so far.
Yeah, he raised like $2.8 to $3 million or something, which is pretty impressive recently. Actually, a lot of his base, he speaks a lot to like the poor white folks whose jobs are taken away by automation. So you see a lot of people at his rallies are like older, middle age or older white folks. And I'm not sure if this is true. I'm not sure, Paul, you'd know this, but there's a lot of like white supremacists who support him as well. I'm not sure if they're trolling or if legit.
Okay, so I have some friends who do support him for that reason, and it's a pretty interesting reason. It's a pretty interesting reason, like that he gave me, and basically, they see the this is what he told me. They see the $1,000, right? The freedom dividend as kind of like this, like a virtual border wall, in the sense that so this is it's obviously going to lead to some inflation, right? Like this dividend is like $1,000 a month, but like it'll be okay, like for American citizens, because it's like mostly American citizens that will be getting like that money. But this inflation will affect like more like the illegals who won't be able to to get that dividend, and so it's it's gonna make it's gonna price them out pretty much, like out of America. Is the thinking. That's the reasoning or the rationale that these guys are coming up with. But
that's an interesting one. I haven't heard of that one, but I do think that what Andrew Yang is doing is pretty smart, which is, he's trying to figure out how Trump got elected, and Trump got elected because a lot of angry people in Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, basically voted. He had empty promises about bringing manufacturing jobs back, but he is one of the few people actually calling out big changes that are happening in the country. Basically, just like middle America being carved out, and at least having some solutions for it. It seems like the other candidates are, talking about other things. So I do like that he's doing that. What's that?
Do you believe in that? Like in the automation, like
It's really intriguing. It's really intriguing. I feel like it's one of those ideas that just sounds so far out that you almost need like time to digest it and then just figure out what's happening. But it's interesting. People do debate what the solution is, but at least the problem seems less controversial. Like it does seem clear that a ton of people in call centers and truck driving jobs and all those things, like they are losing their jobs, and you can't retrain them to be like computer engineers. So I don't know what's going to happen to these people. So yeah, I mean, I think it's an important issue he's raising. From what I've seen online, it does seem to generate like very controversial reactions, like the solution to it. It's just one of those far out things that people just probably have never thought about, and it does sound pretty dramatic. But I think he's doing a nice job explaining how like Nordic countries do it right now. Alaska has been doing it for a while. So he does a good job trying to make it seem relatable. But from just the things that I see online, it does seem like most of mainstream America, it'll probably take them some time to even wrap their heads around what he's proposing.
The way he sells it to different groups of people is like really interesting. Like, or because like everyone has a reason for it to have like $1,000. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, I think he was on The View. He was on The View, and he's trying to sell like his plan to women, right? And the way he sold it was that, so basically it's like it'll give women like the it'll allow women to leave, like, let's say like abusive husbands, right? Like, let's say for example, so they're not like financially dependent on let's say an abusive husband or something like that. So it'll allow them to like to leave those relationships if they need to. And that's how he sold it, like on The View. When he went on, I think it was like that show, like with like it was like that black show, like black radio show or something. And I think he sold it to them in that same way, in that like it'll help like a lot of black families. You know what I mean? Like with unemployment and things like that. Like, it's already affecting like a lot of them. And then when he went on Tucker Carlson, like he the way he sold it to them was like was also pretty good. And you mentioned like all the stats that you said right now, and that's like a lot of the things that he said like on Tucker's show. And so I think he did like a really like good job, really really interesting job, like what's this called, shaping his messaging to his audience. Like, he knows his audience. I don't know if you know what I mean, or if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think he does a good job branding that stuff. I mean, he must have, he's a businessman and an entrepreneur, so he seems to have some good marketing sense. I mean, even the way that he coins his things, like the freedom dividend, it's kind of, I mean, he's good at that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested to watch the debates that are going to happen coming up. I know that after the next debates, they're going to cut the field by a lot. So I anticipate a lot of interrupting and people trying to shout over each other. And I know last time he kind of didn't get to speak much. So I'm really curious to see if he can kind of get in there and hold his own, and hopefully get a lot more percentage points pulling his way.
It was interesting his position in the debate stage, right? Because he was like just off of center, wasn't he? He wasn't center, but he was like right next.
Yeah, I think he was next to Pete, the mayor from Indiana. Yeah, he was 2 away from Biden, and then I think the one coming up, he's right next to Kamala Harris. So he's got some pretty good position, at least on the camera.
Right. He was
Yeah,
like,
they're not going to give him many questions. They only gave him like 1 or 2 questions or something last time. He needs to interrupt and do all that and be aggressive. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of rolling my eyes when he I think like the only question he got last time was about China. I was like, come on, give me a break. Like you asked the Asian guy the question about China. Like I guess that stuff's still happening. So hopefully he can break out of it
too. I think his mic was muted for part of the debates.
Yeah, I heard about that.
All right. So I think we're kind of past time